Okay, as we begin moving into Finnegans Wake here, which was published in 1939, Ulysses, you'll recall, had been published in 1922, and it took him 17 or 18 years to write this thing. So all through the 20s and 30s, and it's quite a book. It's quite an achievement. So what I'd like to do here, just to kick off the class, is to read only the first 4 paragraphs. Because they function as a kind of overture, like Joseph Campbell says in his Skeleton Key to Finnegans Wake. It does indeed function as an overture. Not only that, but they are the 4 hardest paragraphs in the entire book to read, and the most dense with information. And so before I get to that, though, we should know about Vico. So Giambattista Vico is an Italian philosopher who wrote The New Science in 1725, published it then. And then again, in the year of his death, 1744, he got absolutely no recognition for it in his lifetime, died in poverty and obscurity. He sent the manuscript off to Newton and Gassendi and people like that, but everyone just shrugged their shoulders at him. And what he had done was sort of, in a way, to take Joachim of Florus, a previous Italian philosopher, and his 3-stage model of history as the age of the Father, the age of the Son, and the age of the Holy Spirit, and to combine it with Hesiod's model of the Golden Age, the Silver Age, the Iron Age, and then, or the Golden Age, the Silver Age, the Bronze Age, and then the Iron Age. And that is the equivalent of the 4 yugas in the Great Mahayuga cycle in India, of a Krita Yuga, Trita Yuga, Dvapara Yuga, and then the Kali Yuga. So that the Iron Age is homologous, you might say, to use that term from biology, comparative biology, the 18th century style, Goethe and so forth. They're homologous structures, the Iron Age and the Kali Age, and then the Ricorso. So Vico adds to the model, the 3-stage model, a 4th stage, namely the Ricorso, which is the Age of Chaos. And so the 4 books of Finnegans Wake are modeled upon this 4-fold structure. And here's a map of it. The Theocratic Age, which is the Age of the Gods, and then the Aristocratic Age, which is the Age of Heroes, and then the Democratic Age, which is the Age of the People, and then finally we get the Chaos Age, the Kali Yuga, the Ricorso, into which everything disintegrates, and then it lays the foundation for the next civilization that will come into being out of this. This model is incorrect in saying that marriage only occurs in the Aristocratic Age. It does not. It comes in the Theocratic Age, because from out of the Ricorso, there is, prior to every age in which there is a birth of the gods, that's announced by the thunderclap. And the thunderclap is the thing which Vico says puts the fear of God, and gods, or gods plural, into men, and causes them then to settle down, domesticate, create marriage and agriculture at the same time, and in this theocratic age of the gods, to worship the gods out of fear, basically, of that thunderclap, that wrath of God, that brings to an end the age of the giants, the antediluvial age of the giants, such as the Nephilim, or the age in Greek mythology, the early age of Prometheus. Prometheus, Vico says, is a giant. So you get this age of these uncivilized giants who don't know marriage, who are sexually promiscuous, and then the thunderclap happens. Civilization then begins, and it's up and running now with the building of cathedrals and pyramids, let's say. Not that Vico knew anything about Egyptians, he did not. As Napoleon had not yet gone into Egypt, and there was no Rosetta Stone. And then the aristocratic age comes in with the Age of Heroes. And so you get characters like Hercules and Theseus and so forth, all these culture founders who found cities and a civilized, semi-civilized way of life in the aristocratic age, because Vico makes the point, and it's a good one, that in each of these 3 different ages, there's a different structure of consciousness. There's a different way of thinking. In the democratic age, rationalism is taken for granted. People have rights. Not so in the aristocratic age of Homer, when in the opening of the Iliad, Agamemnon and Achilles are arguing over the girl Briseis. They're these uncivilized savages, basically, the heroes. They have their master morality, as Nietzsche would call it, but it's far from anything like what we would regard as a civilized society. Think of Mycenae. It's basically just a fortress stronghold. Not even much of a city is up and running there yet in the aristocratic age. The city really comes into being with people like Solon in the democratic, which inaugurates the democratic age in Greece. And then with the rise of the tribunate of the plebs in Rome, Vico makes the mistake of thinking that the Greeks are two separate societies from the Romans. The Greeks and the Romans, they are not. Spangler sutures that together. But nonetheless, democracy gets off up and running there with the plebeians who never have rights against the patricians, setting up the tribunate, in which the tribune can veto the power of the two consuls that are the people running the show for 1 year, who are reelected annually. And that age, of course, as we well know, disintegrated with all of the Roman civil wars that ended that age, starting with the assassinations of the Gracchi brothers, and then it goes down into chaos, and then it ends with the creation of a universal state or an empire under Augustus Caesar. And then the cycle begins again with the coming in of the German barbarians in the time of Romulus Augustulus, and they come in and just overthrow the place, and now we're back into the Chaos Age, the age of the oystery gods, gag and fishy gods, as Joyce will call it in a moment. So I want to get to the text. So that's the basic spinal structure of the book. Book 1 has 8 chapters, the book of the Father. Book 2 is the book of the Sons. It has 4 chapters. Book 3 is the book of the people, and it has 4 chapters. And then finally there's a last final chapter, the Ricorso itself chapter, which is only 1 chapter. So there are 17 chapters total. 7 plus 1 adds up to 8, and 8 is the number of Venus, which is the goddess. Venus has a synodic 8-year cycle where it returns back to the same spot in the sky every 8 years. So possibly Joyce had that in mind. For Ulysses, it was the number 9. 18 chapters, 8 plus 1 is 9. And 9 is a sacred number to the goddess, 9 for the muses, the embryo 9 months in the womb, and so forth. So either 9 or 8 can be read as a goddess number. But let's tackle these first 4 paragraphs here. They are a bit challenging. So what I'm going to do is read each paragraph, then analyze it, and then go back and read the whole thing fluidly. So it begins, River Run. Past even Adams, from swerve of shore to bend of bay, brings us by a commodious vicus of recirculation back to Hoath Castle and environs. Okay, so it begins in mid-sentence. The last sentence of the book goes along the, and then this would connect to it, along the river run. The rivers are associated with goddesses, and the goddess character in this book, the analog you might say of Molly Bloom, is Anna Livia Plurabelle, or Alp for short. The German word for a nightmare is an Albtraum, the nightmare of world history that Stephen Dedalus refers to in Ulysses. So the running river is the river of time. It's the Heraclidean flux, the river that you can't step into the same river twice. And it's the flow of Shakti in Hindu mythology that comes in and breaks into pairs of opposites. Adam and Eve, night and day, light and dark, yin and yang, everything starts breaking up into pairs of opposites. From swerve of shore to bend of bay. So we're going out the River Liffey. On the physical plane, the river is the River Liffey because this is set in Dublin. Let's take a look at a map here of Ireland. So here's Dublin, and here's Hoath Hill, Hoath Island. And now there's a popular tradition that Joyce picks up here that it's in the form of the body of a giant, and the Hoath Isle is its head. The isthmus here is its neck, and the Greek word isthmus means neck. Is its neck, and Dublin itself is its belly, and its toes are to be found in Phoenix Park. Phoenix Park. Let's see, I think we have, then I have a model for a map of Phoenix Park here somewhere. I thought I did, perhaps. Oh, here it is. So this is a Phoenix Park, and its toes are the Castle Knock, and here's a knock, the Castle Knock. So he extensilize, as Joyce calls him, extensilize along that axis, moving from east to west. Okay, here. And then this is the church, the actual church of Even Adams, which is on the Liffey. This is what it looks like. It's the Church of the Immaculate Conception, also known, as it says, as Adam and Eve's. So there's always a real analog going on here because we're in the mind of a man who's asleep dreaming. So we have picked up from where Ulysses left off as Molly Bloom was falling asleep, and we were tracing the river run of her thoughts without punctuation, a running river of prose, and then she falls asleep, and now bam, we're in a person's head. We're in the dreaming consciousness. Only in this case, it's not a woman, it's a man. It's a man who is named H.C.E. Humphrey Chimpton Earwicker. Humphrey suggests Humpty Dumpty. Chimpton suggests, of course, the evolution from apes and the earwicker, the popular superstition that the earwig gets inside the ear. It emphasizes orality. Joyce is a very acoustically attuned writer, very much oral. It's all about hearing the prose, more so than actually reading it with your eyes. It's hearing it that makes it work. So Joyce is modeling his cosmology on the Hindu myth of Vishnu, the god who is lying asleep, and his dream is the dream of world history, the Maya realm. And out of his navel unfolds a lotus, and on that lotus is the god Brahma, who has 4 faces, because he's like a movie projector who projects out to the 4 directions the nightmare of world history. So that's the model. We're asleep, and we are in a man's mind, which is also actually the astral plane. So this is also a journey through the astral plane, because when we're asleep and dreaming, we go to the same place that we go to when we die. The astral body separates from the physical and etheric bodies and goes into the astral plane, where we astral travel through our dreams. Our thoughts become the realities that we experience in our dreams, and then we return back to the physical body in the daytime, and the cycle begins again. And Joyce has, of course, borrowed this from the Upanishads, which analyzes Om, A-U-M, into waking consciousness, dreaming consciousness, and then deep dreamless sleep. He had intended to complete the trilogy of Ulysses, which corresponds to waking consciousness, and Finnegans Wake, which corresponds to dreaming consciousness, with a book that would have corresponded to the blissful oceanic state of deep dreamless sleep, with a meditative epic upon the ocean. Okay, so that's the sort of overview of where we're at and what's going on, flowing along here. Now, it's interesting to compare the rough draft. I've got the rough draft here open on Internet Archive, which brings us to Howth Castle and Environs. And Howth Castle and Environs are the initials for HCE, Humphrey Chimpton Earwicker. He's part of the landscape, actually, is the whole thing here. And later in the Democratic Age, it will mean here comes everybody. Sir Tristram, Viola d'Amore, and we haven't gotten there yet because the first paragraph only is this one sentence, which he then later expands brilliantly to the paragraph as it is now. River run past Eve and Adams from swerve of shore to bend of bay. Now that swerve of shore to bend of bay is the line here. Where's my map? The line here from here along the coast as it comes out the river Liffey and then goes along the swerve of shore and bend of bay here, and it suggests that the waters are constantly slamming into the head of Howth, just as all the invaders of history have been slamming into Ireland, invading it again and again and again and again. And now it's important to note that HCE even though he's in Ireland, he's an outsider because he's of German ancestry. So he's an outsider like Leopold Bloom was an outsider. He was a Jew. So HCE is an outsider because on one level he symbolizes yet another invasion, another invader of Ireland. So let's continue. Brings us by a commodious vicus. Now commodious just means a wide and spacious something, but it refers to the Emperor Commodus, in whose time the Roman Empire began to show severe symptoms of decay. Vicus is a reference to Vico, but it also means a village, and it also in Latin it refers to a village, but it also refers to a way, a road. And there's also a Vico road in Dalkey in Ireland. A commodious vicus of recirculation. We're recirculating here. We've gone through a circuit. Now, Anna Livia is the symbol of the rivers, and the rivers go through a circuit. They come down from the hills where there has been rain and snow. Then they come down. They transform into the river Liffey, which then empties out into the ocean and then evaporates into clouds, which then come back and renew the cycle. That's ALP's cycle. Her name, Alp. So it's a recirculation. We're coming back, and also too, it implies reincarnation. I'm almost positive that Joyce believed in reincarnation. He had been studying a lot of Indian philosophy for both Ulysses and Finnegans Wake. He knew the books of Heinrich Zimmer. The book Maya by Heinrich Zimmer, which is not available in English, was found in his library. So we know that he had reincarnation in mind here. So not only are we returning from a completed civilization and now we're starting up a whole new cycle again, the implication is that it's a new lifetime we're reincarnating. Sir Tristram Viola de More, Frova the Short Sea, had Pazancourt re-arrived from North Armorica on this side the scraggy isthmus of Europe Minor to wielder fight his peninsulate war, nor had topsawyer's rocks by the stream Oconee exaggerated themselves to Lawrence County's gorgios while they went doubling their mumper all the time, nor a voice from a fire below Sidmisha Misha to Toff Thuart Petrick. Not yet, though Venice soon after had a kid scad butt into the bland old Isaac. Not yet, though all's fair in Venesey, were Saucy Sethler's Roth with Twone, Nath, and Joe. Rodapeck of Pa's Malt had Gemmer Shen brewed by arclight, and Rory into the Regenbrow was to be seen ringsome on the aquaface. So Sir Tristram refers to, of course, Tristan, who, in the myth of Tristan and Isolde, which is written in the 12th century, and this is a reference to the 12th century with Henry II's conquest of Ireland, and Sir Tristram came in along with him. His name was Almeric Tristram, and he is the first to conquer Howth Island. So he comes in, conquers Howth Island, and most likely sets up an early version of the castle there, a wooden version of Howth Castle. That's the historical Tristram, and then Tristram himself then comes from Cornwall and crosses the Short Sea, which is the channel between Cornwall and Ireland, and winds up in Ireland, rescued from his coracle by Isolde, with whom he falls in love, and they end up cuckolding King Mark. That triad is important to keep in mind because it also plays into the triad of the legendary Irish mythological character Finn McCool, the great Irish hero who is the warrior of the Fenians and who organizes them. But then he, in his old age, is betrothed to a young girl, and this motif of the old man betrothed to the young girl is woven through this paragraph here in a moment with Jonathan Swift. And he is cuckolded then by Diarmid. So we have Diarmid correspond, and that's where the myth comes from. But it may actually be more complicated than that because there are influences coming in from Arabian culture, from Spain, moving up into France from their Sufi traditions and their tradition of Layla and Majnun and Ramin and Wis, which also have the same mad, passionate love affair theme with Trinity, with three characters. And Graina is the woman here, Diarmid and Graina, and he steals Graina away from Finn McCool. Ends up being killed by a boar, though, picking up the Addis motif. So Sir Tristram, Viola de More, that's a musical instrument. Tristan plays the harp, just as David does, but it also suggests a violation of love. Frova the Short Sea, that's across the channel there, is the St. George's Sea, had Pazancourt, had not yet, French for Pazancourt, not yet re-arrived, because all of this has already happened before. From North Armorica is Brittany, and that is where the Normans originate when they come out of Brittany to conquer both England, and then they enter into Ireland as well afterwards. But it also refers to North America, as we'll see in a moment. On this side, the Scraggy Isthmus, that's the neck that connects Howth Island with the mainland of Ireland. Of Europe Minor to wielder fight, Widerfechten is German for refighting a war. His peninsulate war, it suggests penis so late, so the phallic emphasis in the war, but it's late. But also pen in isolation, which is the motif of the introvert. We have two brothers, Shem and Sean. Sean the extrovert, the postman, and Shem is the penman, the writer, who writes in isolation. But also the Napoleonic Wars, the Peninsular Wars, where Wellington beat Napoleon. So to wielder fight his Peninsular War, nor had Top Sawyer's rocks. So there's the American reference now, Top Sawyer. That's Tom Sawyer. But a Top Sawyer also, let's see, do I have my picture of a Top Sawyer here? Is also suggests the Top Sawyer is the guy who is on top of a tree who is sawing, while the bottom Sawyer below is down in the pit, and it suggests the battling brothers motif where one is always on top. There's always somebody who is playing the role of the anvil in history, as the Irish have played so many times to so many invasions, and one who is playing the hammer against it. And then nor had Top Sawyer's rocks by the stream Oconee exaggerated themselves to Lawrence County's gorgios. Now, as it happens, there is a double of Dublin in, here it is, This is Dublin, Georgia, and it was founded by a guy named Peter Sawyer, almost unbelievably. Although some traditions say that they corrected that to his son, Jonathan Sawyer. But either way, it was founded by a guy named Sawyer. Dublin, so Gorgios refers to Georgia, but Italian Gorgo means whirlpool, so it's also the abyss. It's also the name of Joyce's son, Giorgio. And doubling our number was Dublin, Georgia's motto, doubling our number. So they went doubling their mumper all the time. Now the word mumper conceals a few words. A mumper is a beggar, but also the word mum is a type of beer that's brewed, and it is, HCE himself is that beer. He is that ale, just as Christ is the wine that is imbibed. And Oconee is the Irish cry of grief, and that may have been why they named the river Oconee, where Dublin, Georgia has been situated. Exaggerare in Latin means to build up a mound. So Topsawyer's Rocks then refers to the testicles of these people, which are generating the population. I think the population, I looked it up, it was like 13,000 there in Dublin, to Lawrence County. So it's in Lawrence County. But remember that Sir Tristram actually changed his name to St. Lawrence. His family name is Lawrence. To Lawrence County's Gorgios. Gorgio is also a gypsy word for a person who is a non-gypsy. While they went Dublin, their mumper all the time. Nor a voice from a fire below said Misha Misha to Toff Toff Thort Petrick. So that's St. Patrick now, coming into Ireland. We're going back in time to 432 AD when St. Patrick comes in. And what he does is he draws a circle around himself that becomes a pit, a gateway to the underworld that is, it's on an island. I've forgotten the name of the island, where people go to make pilgrimages to it. And there's a fire down below. Then he's sort of baptizing the island. Thou art Patrick, but also it's Petrick. It's Pete. There's lots of Pete. Toffen in German means to baptize. Toffen, Toff. Misha. In Japan, I don't know if Joyce intended this, but in Japan when they answer the phone, they say mashi mashi. But it actually means I am in Gaelic. I am. And it's supposed to be the voice of Saint Bridget. Well, Bridget, the goddess Bridget, was the goddess who was there. She was the high goddess in Irish mythology, equivalent to Dana, and the Tuatha De Danann are the children, the people of Dana who were there, native to the land, possibly the megalith builders, before the Celts got there around 500 BC. And then so Bello, the top Petrick. Okay, so not yet, though Venice soon after, further backward in time, had a kid scab, but ended a bland old Isaac. So now we're in the biblical time with Jacob and Esau, where Esau puts on a kid scad, a kid skin, and goes in and tricks his father to get Esau's birthright. Jacob does. Not yet, though all's fair in Vanity, were Sazi Sether's wroth with Twone Nathan Joe. So Vanessa is a name made up by Jonathan Swift for one of his two lovers. And here again, there was an age gap, and this is around 1700 that this occurs. He's met these two women, and he gives one of them the name. They're both named Esther, and he gives one of them the Dutch girl from, let's see, where was she from? Von Mogen, something like that. I've written it down here, but from Van Morig, right. And then he adds Essa, which is his version of Esther, as a suffix. So he creates the name Vanessa, for the one girl, and the other Esther he names Stella, which of course means star, which is interesting because Esther is a Persian word. There's a book of Esther in the Bible. It's a Persian word that means star, and it's actually a transformation of Babylonian Ishtar. So it's the goddess Ishtar, who was originally the goddess Inanna, which was the star Venus. So fascinating. And the book of Esther, these three books that he's referring to, the books of Ruth and the book of Esther, and the third one, the book of Susanna. Susanna's in the apocryphal text. It's a text about a woman where two elders are spying on her. Rembrandt paints this, are spying on her as she's bathing naked, and they get turned on. She gets caught into a plot with them, and then the prophet Daniel comes in and saves her from being accused of having a love affair and cheating on her husband. All three of these women, Ruth and Susanna and Esther, are virtuous women in the Bible. But Swift's affair was not exactly virtuous. He had these two lovers, and it was not a pleasant thing. And this, so Vanity, all's fair in Vanity, and that, of course, is a reference to Vanity Fair also, which is written by Thackeray, the guy who wrote Barry Lyndon, which is written by Thackeray, and that novel is about two women who are these aggressive social climbers. It's called A Novel Without a Hero because these women are not virtuous. So they're the exact opposite of the three biblical women here. Twone is 2 in 1, Nath and Joe. So he takes Jonathan's name, pulls it apart, turns it upside down, which is what the two women did to him, this poor old guy. Rada Pekka Paz Malt. And that, so had Gem or Shen brewed by Arclight. So now we're back in the time of Noah with Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Ham sees his father naked after he's brewed. Here it's German, malt instead of wine. He puts in malt, German beer. It's the second reference to the brewing of beer here. Ham sees him naked, and then it's kind of a castration motif. He's ashamed, and the two other kids come in, walk backward with a sheet, and put it over him. Brewed by Arclight, so it's a reference to the ark. And Rorient to the Regenbrau was to be seen ringsome on the aquaface. To the Rorient, we see the rainbow gleaming on the face of the waters as the sign of resurrection. So the whole book is about the fall, the myth of the fall, and then subsequent resurrection. It's reiterated again and again all throughout the book with the fall myth, Adam's fall, Satan's fall, Humpty's fall off the wall. And it's based on a ballad, the Ballad of Tim Finnegan, which is an 1860s popular drinking song about a hod carrier, a mason, who climbs up a ladder, he gets drunk, and he falls and dies, just like Humpty Dumpty falls off the wall. And then he falls and dies, and they have a wake for him, a funeral, at which someone spills ishkabau on him, which is the Gaelic word for whiskey, and it resurrects him. He comes back to life. That's what the ballad... sometimes the ballad's called Finnegans Wake. It's actually not a title that Joyce originated. So it goes through variations, and different spellings too. And one of them even omits the apostrophe, which is very interesting. And then so the fall. What's going to happen in the narrative is that HCE is a tavern keeper, and he has the wife, Anne Olivia Plurabelle, and he has a daughter, little Isolde. She's named after Isolde, or Isabella, I suppose is her real name. But she's referred to very often as Isolde, the temptress, in other words. And then he has the two boys, Shem and Chan, who are the archetypal battling brothers. But he has been accused of exhibiting himself in Phoenix Park. So Phoenix Park is meant to be Eden, and this is meant to be a reiteration of original sin, with which we have all been stained. All men are consumed to fall, so that God may put bring eternal mercy to them. That's in Peter's letter to Corinthians 11:32, which is reiterated throughout Ulysses. And then he's exposed himself to two little girls in this park, which has been witnessed by three sailors, and then they spread the rumor around the town about this. They sort of at me to him, in other words. And he's an outsider, and he has these 12 tavern people who come in and drink there, 12 of them. Of course, that's not an accident. A reference to the zodiac. And then there are 4 old codgers who come in, and they represent the 4 evangelists reporting the news, but they also correspond to our journalistic media in the modern day, reporting the good news, which usually isn't very good, ironically. So then we have the fall. However you pronounce it. But it's the thunderbolt. This is Vika's thunderclap. Notice that it begins with a stutter, because HCE has a stutter. He also has a kind of a hunch on his back, a bit of a hunchback. And Joyce has compounded a bunch of words from different languages that mean thunder into one thunderclap that initiates the age of the gods, coming out of the chaos here in Vico's model. It's also on the literal plane, it's HCE farting in his sleep. That's the literal reference to this, but the mythological is from Vico, the thunderclap. The fall of a once Wall Street old par. Wall Street is, of course, a reference to Wall Street and the Great Depression, the fall there. Old par is retailed early in bed, and later on life, down through all Christian minstrelsy. Old Parr is a reference to Thomas Parr, who, so far as we know, is the longest lived man, 152 years. I think he lived from 1483 to 1632. That's a long life. And of course, it also refers to the French word for father is père, Old Parr, and it also has a couple of other meanings. Let's see what it also means a young salmon. A parr is a young salmon, and that refers to the Irish myth of the salmon of life, which is eaten by Finn McCool after his teacher, whose name is Fingal, or Finnegal. So there's another Finn. There's all these Finns everywhere. Huckleberry Finn is referred to obliquely here by Tom Sawyer. That's an American Finn. And so it's a young salmon, and Finn McCool eats it, and he gains knowledge from the eating of the sacred salmon. Down through so the legend is retold all through Christian history. The great fall of the Offwall, and you're supposed to think of Humpty Dumpty, entailed at such short notice the shoot of Finnegan. Now that's, of course, the word shoot, going down a chute, but it also sounds like a falling star, or like the fall of Satan from heaven, Earth's solid man, that the Humpty Hillhead of himself promptly sends an inquiring one well to the west in quest of his Tumty-Tum-Toes. And their upturned pike pointing place is at the knockout in the park, where oranges have been laid to rust upon the green since Devlin's first loved Livy. So he is extensive with the landscape, as I started off by saying. The hill head of himself is on Hoath Isle, and as you go to the west, an inquiring one finds his toes at Castle Knock. It's at the knockout in the park at Phoenix Park. Castle Knock are the toes. That's the upturned pike pointing place, where oranges, that's William of Orange and William III, another one of these invaders of Ireland, have been laid to rest. There's a cemetery there upon the green since Devlin's first loved Livy. And it's interesting, we've got an oblique reference to Mark Twain, Mark II, that's an echo of King Mark in the trilogy, or the Trinity, rather, a triplicity, shall we say, of Mark, Isolde, and Tristan. Mark Twain's wife was named Livy. Interesting. I don't know if Joyce knew that or not. Probably he did. The guy seems to have known everything. Okay, one more paragraph. What clashes here of wills gen won'ts, oystery gods, gaggin fishy gods, brecket, cacket, cacket, quack, 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 walloo, walloo, quail. Where the Battlearies partisans are still out to Master Malachus McGrains, and the Verdens catapulting the camel ballistics out of the hoity boys of Hoodie Head, Assagates and boomerang stroms, sod's brood be me fear, Sanglorian save, arms appeal with larms, appalling, killy kill killy, a toll. What chance cuddlies, what cashels aired and ventilated, what bitomy to loves induced by what tegotet absolvers, what true feeling for there's hair, with what strong voice of false hiccup. Oh, hear how hath sprawled met the dust, the father of fornicationists, but, oh my shining stars and body, how hath fain spanned most high heaven, the sky sign of soft advertisement. But was is-o? Ere were sewers? The oaks of old, now they lie in peat, yet elms leap where asks lay. Fall if you but will, rise you must, and none so soon either shall the farce for the nonce come to a set-down secular finish. Okay, so this is a battle. This is the Dark Ages. This is oyster gods, Gaggen, German Gegen for against fishy gods. It also suggests the flood. We're in a gigantic flood where oysters are battling against fish. And also, apparently, it refers historically to the first settlers of Ireland, who were known as shell eaters, who were there before the fish eaters got there. Brekik kekik and quack 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 is the sound of frogs from Aristophanes' play, the Frogs, which is an underworld reference. So we're in a very primordial, dark age landscape of battles. No culture or civilization yet has come into being. Walu, 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 and quail are words for, they're Gaelic words, I believe, for various forms of lament. Where the Battlearies, a Battlear is a type of sword. Battlearies partisans, so we have tribes against tribes, are still out to master Malachus McGrains, various kinds of references to early tribal fights. Malachus might be a reference to Buck Mulligan, Malachi from Ulysses. And the Verdun refers to the Battle of Verdun, but it's also another type of weapon. Catapulting, a catapult, the cannibalistics, he says, It suggests cannibalism, but also ballistics, missiles flying everywhere. The White Boys of Hoodie. The White Boys, it's a veiled reference to the Ku Klux Klan, but also to a group of Irish nationalists in the 18th century, I think it was, who were not very well behaved. Of Hoodie had Assegate, and an Assai is a Zulu type of weapon, and the boomerang is an Australian type of weapon. Sod's brood, be me fair, God's blood, in other words, but Sod is also a reference to Ireland, the old Sod, and fear for her brood, be me fear. Fearing for the brood of Ireland, but also fear for and fear of. Sanglorians save. Sang is the song is the French for blood, so we have blood, and also in Spanish too, blood. Sans is also short for without in French, without glory, or with glory. Joyce loves to have words that have contradictory meanings, one and the same time. Save could also be read as the Latin salve, salvation. Arms appeal with larms. The word alarm in German, noise is Lärm, noise. Appalling, the whole thing is appalling. Killy kill killy refers to reference to a cat, a Kilkenny cat story about a cat, two cats who fight until nothing is left of them. And atoll, what a cost this is! What a cost! But an atoll is of course a small island. Ireland is certainly an island, and also atoll, just a sort of sighing about this waste of life. What chance cuddlies? So what chance would love have here in this, all these chaotic battles? What castles aired and ventilated? A cashel is also a type of wall around a church, in addition to a veiled reference, of course, to castles being cleared out with a breath of fresh air from these battles. They're sort of clearing the stage of the decay that has gone on in the cycle before. What Bidamita loves, those are little Isolde seductrices, seduced by what Tegotet absolvers. So the priests apparently are seducing young girls, to egote absolvo. What true feeling for their hair with what strong... Hayfoot, Strawfoot is another battling brother pair, hair. So what true feeling for their hair with what strong voice of false hiccup? Oh, hear how Hoth Castle, of course, sprawled, prowled, Hoth, met the dusked, also dusk, sunset for the fall. Spengler's Der Untergang des Abendlandes, Twilight of the Evening Lands. I'm not sure that Joyce read Spengler. The model is from Vico, but he might have. Spengler and Vico are quite compatible in basic form. The father of fornicationists, that would be Adam. Adam is the father of fornicationists. But, oh my shining stars and body, a reference to the redemption. We have Adam, the fall, original sin. The rainbow is redemption. It's also a reference, I think, to Nut, the Egyptian sky goddess whose body is coterminous with the Milky Way. How hath fane spanned most high heaven, the sky sign of soft advertisement. That again is the reference to redemption, signs and wonders in the heavens. But is Isolde in... Now, in Tristan and Isolde, there are two Isoldes. There's a young Isolde that he falls in love with. There's an older Isolde that he doesn't love, but since he misses Isolde, he marries her just because of her name. But the two here are Isolde in the mode of temptress, and then which is the young Isolde, and the older Isolde is the one who gathers the pieces. You might say Isis going around picking up the pieces of Osiris and putting them into a basket. The oaks of Ald. So we have the oaks now of olden times have disintegrated as the old culture has disintegrated. Now they lie in peat. Yet elms leap, so elms are coming out of what are ashes. The midden heap, the collapse at the end of a civilization. It's upon on ash trees as well, of course. Weapons, by the way, are made from, in Scandinavian mythology, they made their spears from ash trees. So this is a paragraph full of weapons. Fall is spelled phallically. Fall by way of the temptation, by way of the phallus, as Parnell fell in his career, who was seduced, his phallus arisen by Kitty O'Shea, which ended his career. Fall if you but will, rise you must, and none so soon either shall the farce for the nonce come to a set-down secular finish. But finish is spelled phoenix, so You're bound to be, even though you fall, you're going to rise once again because the cycle will renew itself. All right, so we'll stop there for discussion in class. And for those of you who are thinking about registering and are on the fence, the first class begins on this Saturday at noon MST on Zoom. My email is johndavidebert@gmail.com. Hit me up for that with class details if you want to do this. We're going to read the whole thing, maybe not quite as slowly as we have examined these first 4 paragraphs because they're the most dense. And they act as an overture, just like an opera, because they contain all the motifs and themes that will later be unfolded all through the novel, especially that fall and then rise, death, resurrection, all these cycles going over and over again. All right, hope to see you in class.